Honorable Finance Minister Shrimati Nirmala Sitharaman, along with Honorable Minister of State for Finance Shri Pankaj Chaudhary has arrived. We extend a very warm welcome to the dignitaries and all the guests on behalf of CBIC.
मैं माननीय वित्त मंत्री, माननीय वित्त राज्य मंत्री एवं मंच पर उपस्थित सभी गणमान्य अतिथियों से यह अनुरोध करता हूं कि वह दीप प्रज्वलित कर कार्यक्रम की शुभ शुरुआत करें।
Thank you, ma'am and sirs. Let us now start the program invoking divine blessings. Samved, Delhi CGST's choir will now present a Ganpati Vandana. This stotra called Shri Gajanan Prasann is in the praise of Lord Ganesha. This popular bhajan set to teen tal beautifully describes Ganpati's various attributes.
गणेश वंदना की इस अद्भुत प्रदर्शन ने आज के दिन को एक नई ऊर्जा के साथ भर दिया है. We are celebrating the 5th GST Day as part of Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, and nothing can be better than a wooden, handcrafted portrait of our beloved father of nation as a memento. और इसीलिए बापू का ध्यान करते हुए मैं श्री विवेक जौहरी, अध्यक्ष CBIC से आग्रह करना चाहूंगा कि वह माननीय वित्त मंत्री को यह स्मृति चिन्ह भेंट कर उनका स्वागत करें. मैं श्री विवेक जौहरी से निवेदन करता हूं कि वह माननीय वित्त राज्य मंत्री को स्मृति चिन्ह भेंट कर उनका स्वागत करें. मैं श्री विवेक जौहरी से पुनः आग्रह करता हूं कि वह राजस्व सचिव को स्मृति चिन्ह भेंट कर उनका स्वागत करें.
Thank you, sir. Now, I would like to invite Member CBIC, Shri DP Nagendra Kumar, to kindly deliver the welcome address.
Honorable Finance Minister and Corporate Affairs, Shri Nirmala Sitharaman ji, Honorable Minister of State for Finance, Shri Pankaj Chaudhary ji, Revenue Secretary, Shri Tarun Bajaj, Chairman CBIC, Shri Vivek Jowhary, my colleagues, members from the Central Board of Indirect Taxes and Customs, Chairman and members of the CBDT, retired senior officers of CBIC, distinguished invitees from the trade and industry, representatives from the professional bodies and associations, departmental officers and colleagues, other distinguished invitees, friends from the media, ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, I wish you all a very happy GST Day. It gives me immense pleasure to extend a warm welcome to you all to the GST Day celebrations being held at Vigyan Bhawan today. 5 years ago, on this day, GST was unveiled in the Central Hall of the Parliament by the Honorable President and Honorable Prime Minister of India, ushering in a new era in our economic reforms. This transformational tax reform, the largest one carried out in independent India, has, by and large, achieved its objective, particularly in making one nation, one tax a reality today in a very short span of time. It has led to emergence of a common market. It has also removed the trade barriers within the country, enabling free flow of goods and services in the course of interstate trade and commerce. In a sense, GST is not only a tax reform, but a business reform as well. The indirect tax system in the pre-GST era suffered multiple shortcomings in terms of fragmented tax base between the center and the state, multiplicity of taxes levied at several government levels, complex tax structure leading to tax cascading as well as the compliance burden, and also in terms of adding costs to the ultimate consumers. The earlier system of origin-based taxation system, in a way, has been inequitable in ensuring the tax revenues reaches to the destination states where the consumption base existed. In a way, the deficiencies outlined above were the very challenges which posed in implementing the GST in a vast country like ours. Innovative solutions were to be found to overcome these challenges, starting from amending the Constitution to enable the central and the state governments to simultaneously levy and collect the taxes on goods and services, creating and institutionalizing the GST Council that ensured uniform and harmonious implementation of the GST across the length and breadth of the country. That also played a very important role in recommending the uniform laws, uniform rates, threshold, exemptions, process, procedures, etc. Setting up of a common IT platform in the form of GSTN to provide a single unified portal for interacting key business processes, not only by the taxpayers, but tax administrations, other stakeholders, and also the banks, were some of the innovative initiatives that led to implementation of this mammoth tax reform in this country in a smooth and expeditious manner. The proactive manner in which the GST Council had functioned in the last 5 years, spreading over 47 meetings, taking decisions over 1,300 issues, fixing rates, providing the rules, and also simplifying the compliance, requiring the dynamic decision-making to the emerging situations, particularly the challenges what the country has faced during the COVID, are a testimony to the dynamic and ever-evolving the GST architecture in our country. GST is a fully automated administered tax system in which all the stakeholders perform their processes through the GST and Common Portal. The key business processes like obtaining registration, filing returns, payment of taxes, seeking refunds have all been automated on an end-to-end basis. The data-driven approach has also added to the gains in terms of the tax efficiency and also the improving compliance ever noticed in the country. The GST implementation has achieved a fair degree of stability in terms of settling down of rates, adoption of IT-driven compliance process, and buoyancy in tax revenues. 2.5-fold expansion in the tax base, the growth in revenue year after year what we have been witnessing, and the consensus-based decision-making in the GST Council, which reflects the true spirit in which the cooperative fiscal federalism is playing out in our country. Going forward, implementation of GST is still an unfinished agenda insofar as some of the key areas as listed below. Continuing efforts on rate rationalization, pruning of exemptions, simplifying the process and procedures, and also evolving a strategy for the tax administrations, both at the center and the state, to identify and address the tax risks and mitigate at the earliest point of time to improve the tax collections and also tax efficiency is still yet to be met. The recent examples of the proactive approach in addressing the fake invoice menace to plug revenue leakages is a pointer to the trend that the data-driven approach is what the way forward the tax administration will look forward. In the coming years, I think the tax administrations have to dedicate themselves to a risk-based scrutiny mechanism for the tax returns, the tax audits, to seek an assurance that in a fully self-assessment environment, I think these are the basic asks the tax administration will have to do to achieve the desired revenue collections, protecting the honest taxpayers and prevent revenue leakages. Madam, we are grateful to you for sparing your valuable time to be with us on this joyous occasion of celebrating the 5th GST Day, close to half a decade of implementation, where we look backward and see with a sense of pride and happiness, and also commit ourselves to the future in implementing this tax in a smooth and friendly manner to make GST truly a good and simple tax. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir. 5 years ago, the country embarked upon the journey of simplification of taxes with the goal not only of economic integration but also of facilitation of trade. Today, we have amongst us trade bodies from all over India as partners in progress who wish to share their experience with GST for the past 5 years in the form of presentation on its 5 edifices. We have our first team from Mumbai presenting impact of GST on interstate trade. The team consists of Shri Sunil Chodia, Chairman, Western Region CII, Shri Lalit Gandhi, President, Maharashtra CCIA, Dr. Vijay Kalantri, President, AIAI, Shri Hitesh Doshi, Chairman and Managing Director, Wari Group, Shri Sumit Sapru, Business Head, Shapurji Palonji, Real Estate, Ms. Sulaja Firodia Motwani, CEO, Kinetic Energy and Power Solutions. The team is pivoted by Shri Ashok Kumar Mehta, Principal Chief Commissioner, CGST, Mumbai Zone. The presentation will be made by Ms. Sulaja Firodia Motwani, who found her calling in electric vehicle and green energy while moving from conventional to unconventional.
Honorable Finance Minister, Madam Nirmala Sitharaman ji, Honorable Minister of State Finance, Pankaj Chaudhary ji, Revenue Secretary Tarun Bajaj ji, Chairman CBIC, Mr. Vivek Johri ji, Member CBIC, DP Nagendra Kumar ji, esteemed representatives of the trade, senior officials from the department, friends from media, and ladies and gentlemen. Good morning to all of you. First of all, congratulations to everyone on achieving this wonderful milestone of 5 years of GST. This certainly calls for a celebration because as envisioned by our leaders, Honorable Prime Minister and Honorable Finance Minister, GST has truly turned out to be a path-breaking and revolutionary taxation system which has definitely improved the way that we do business and ease of doing business, and has gone a long way in becoming the good and simple tax that it would like to be. Today I would like to present one of its facets, how it has impacted our lives and our trade, which is looking at the interstate trade and the impact that GST has had on the interstate trade. I speak from personal experience, ma'am, because as a manufacturer of electric vehicles and automobiles in general, we are working in multiple states. We sell our products through hundreds of dealers. We buy components from hundreds of suppliers across the country with multiple locations for our plants and warehouses. And I can tell you with my experience and confidence that GST has been a revolution towards a much improved interstate trade. Before GST, I can say that the interstate trade was nothing short of a nightmare. We had to deal with multiple taxes. There was CST, there was VAT, entry tax, octroi, and many other complex cascading taxes that made interstate trade very expensive and very cumbersome. Logistics was slow, vehicles would be stopped, movement was slow, and overall I think we can say that it led to a lot of waste of time, energy, and resources, and a lot of compliance. If I look at our international partners, they could not even fathom the complexity of the entire interstate trade in India. Pricing decisions were complicated and implementation even more difficult. After the arrival of GST, I think all of this has been simplified to a very great extent. And I think we can say that it has really boosted the interstate trade. Some of the important benefits that we as the industry have felt of the GST on interstate trade. First is that the free and smooth flow of goods across the borders of the states. Because there is one simple taxation, decisions are simple, implementation even more simple. There's no congestion of trucks on borders. There's a lot of saving because time is saved, taxes are reduced, and overall planning has become easier. Compliance also has become simpler and easier and cheaper, I would say. The digital compliance and single uniform taxation system has certainly improved the ability to focus on business and not only on paperwork and compliance. The e-way bill system, I would like to say, in fact, has also been a great improvement on being able to facilitate interstate trade in a very convenient way. The bill-to-ship-to facility is very useful for manufacturers like us to be able to move our goods and provide components to our suppliers and to our dealers. Overall, I think there is a reduction in the price of goods. There's no cascading effects of taxes. The uniform taxation has made it easy to compete across the states. There is no movement of goods looking at price arbitrage and such opportunities. And finally, the seamless input tax credit in the entire supply chain has made our Indian products more competitive to our customers, and thereby making the lives of our masses that much more convenient and comfortable. If I look at the larger picture, beyond just looking at the trade within the country, I can also say that internationally, having introduced a system like GST, which is globally understood, it makes investors and collaborators more comfortable in coming to India for business. They feel that the ease of doing business has certainly improved, and they can understand how to enter and do business in our country. This will certainly attract more and more FDI as we move ahead. The improved interstate trade will definitely lead to improved infrastructure and nation building, which will further facilitate the growth of interstate trade. So I think it has a long-term impact on continuous improvement in our business. And I think last but not the least, the integration of the digital platform for Gati Shakti will also improve multimodal connectivity, and overall, the use of online GST platform will have seamless movement of cargo across different modes of transport. So I think all in all, we can certainly say that the interstate trade has been greatly boosted by the introduction of GST. It has simplified interstate trade. It has made it more convenient and more cheaper and easier for everyone to understand and follow. And I think the results are there for all of us to see. Because of higher revenue growth, certainly the GST growth also has been very marvelous. And I think the proof of the pudding is in eating it, and the results really speak for themselves. First, I would like to thank for this wonderful initiative and its contribution to improving trade in our nation. And by way of a few suggestions and requests, I would like to make a couple of points to further make GST a boon for our business. For the inverted duty structure industries, like export or like electric vehicles also, if faster processing of IGST refund is introduced, it will help in reducing the blockage of funds that we all face. Similarly, if we can also include capital goods and services, tax paid on capital goods and services in refund, it will also further unlock the funds that are blocked. And in the inverted duty structure industries, many of the industries also have trans-1 credit from the earlier regime. If that can be offered for refund, I think it will improve in, again, improving the working capital of the companies which are facing inverted duty structure. Similarly, for export, faster IGST refund will also give a further fillip to exports. We also strongly feel that given that GST has improved the adoption across the entire nation, I think time has come probably to also look at a stronger IT infrastructure boost, which will further facilitate faster processing of GST returns and use of the portals. And last but not the least, SMEs are the backbone of our nation. And I think if there can be further steps towards simplification of returns for the SMEs and e-way bills for the SMEs, it will help in faster adoption of GST across many more SMEs in the country. With that, I would like to once again thank you for your leadership and thank all of you for introduction of this wonderful taxation reform in our nation. I think it has certainly allowed for the young entrepreneurs in our country to dream bigger and do more. So thank you for that and congratulations.
I thank the Mumbai team for the presentation. The second team is from Chennai, presenting Impact of GST on MSME sectors. The team consists of Mr. Srinivas Garimela, Chairman, Industrial Development Committee, FTA, CCI, Hyderabad, Mr. Mahesh Jaisingh, Co-Convener, CII, Karnataka, Mr. K. Karimariappan, Managing Director, Steel Cluster Services Salim Private Limited, Shri Rangaswamy, Vice President, Codicea, Shri Dhiresh Bansal, CFO, Misho. The team is pivoted by Mr. Mandalika Srinivas, Principal Chief Commissioner, CGST, Chennai Zone. Presentation will be made by Mr. Srinivas Garimela. He was the Managing Director of Vega Conveyors and Automation Private Limited when it was voted as the most promising enterprise by Microsoft.
Honorable Finance Minister, Srimati Nirmala Sitharaman, Honorable Minister of Finance, State of Finance, Sri Pankaj Chaudhary ji, respected Revenue Secretary, Sri Tarun Bajaj ji, Chairman CBIC, Sri Vivek Johri ji, Board members of CBIC, senior officials of CBIC, trade representatives, ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning and a warm welcome to you all. Let me start off my presentation on the impact of GST on MSME sector with the inspirational words of our beloved Prime Minister and also from the MSME and Finance Ministries, where the focus is now MSMEs, who are now called the harbingers of change in the Indian economy. I will speak some from my personal experience, some from the presentation. I started off as a micro industry 19 years ago. It took me 10 years to become a small, and last 5 years become medium. I'm aspiring to become a large industry in the next 4 years. This is purely because of GST has catapulted the growth rate faster, and I've been getting double-digit compounded annual growth rate last 4 years, more so because I'm into intralogistics automation. The slide 2 reveals statistics here. Udyam portal, which also incidentally shares its anniversary today, now has 1 crore of registrations, while the GST registrations are a total of 1.36 crores as on March 31st, of which a healthy 43% is from MSME sector, significantly up from 17% 4 years ago. Hence, the impact of GST on micro and small of the MSMEs becomes crucial and is visible now. The next 3 slides, we're going to talk about the beneficial impact that GST has created on MSMEs, particularly on micro and small now. We have categorized them into 3 buckets. The first bucket is one nation, one tax, which is one of the mantras of GST, and that has created a trio of distinct impacts in sales, profitability, and importantly, timelines. The foremost is making the interstate boundaries seamless and making India one market with uniform GST rates and ITC availability. Once an aspiration for many micro industries to be able to sell across the country is now a reality because of GST. The second of the trio is the overall reduction cost due to input tax credit.
Nirmala, am I getting your name right?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry for interrupting, but you know, I feel like for every one of his observation, clapping hands,
Thank you, ma'am.
but I don't want to do it because it's so going to be self-congratulatory, because it's Minister and her team and the boards and everybody here. But on GST Day, assessees are here telling us that it's made a big difference for their business. And other than those who are from the boards, I'm sure there are others. Wouldn't you want to clap? He said so many wonderful things. Not just because I've said it now, because he said something because of automation, his business has improved so much. And the earlier lady who did a spectacular, pointed presentation. Ms. Motwani also said how her business has really now made it possible for not only for herself, but also for the component suppliers, interstate movements. Oh, come on, how many times would you hear government's own steps, which is taken both by the center and the state governments, receiving applause from tax assessees. They are paying tax and also having brilliant words to say. Please.
Salutations to you, ma'am. Thank you so much. The second of the trials, overall reduction in cost. Earlier, MSMEs were competing to reduce the price, and now it's not the price, it's the cost that they're trying to reduce, which is either increasing the sales volume or profitability. The take is theirs. The third one is the reduced logistical overheads due to easing out of interstate procedures, and this has brought in clear visibility to timely deliveries. Earlier, India was not known for timely deliveries. This has brought in visibility in terms of defining a particular timeline. So my claps to that as well. I quickly go down to the next slide, which is the beneficial impact of GST on MSMEs for making it online business processes very simple. This has enhanced the quality of doing business. Ease of doing business was a given, having done all this, but now the quality of business has improved. Faceless registration process with defined timelines, online tax payments, and transfer facility across accounting heads with an online filing of returns with staggered due dates have all created time for micro and small enterprise owners to focus more on the business than on registrations, tax payments, and filing returns. Similarly, provisional refund of 90% within 7 days of acknowledgement to exporters has brought in predictability to cash flows, which wasn't the case earlier. I will now shift to slide 5. The third category, which is reduction in compliance burden, enhancing ease of doing business. Simple ARQP facility exclusively for tiny taxpayers, QRMP facilities for micro industries, and self-certification and annual return have all added to reduction in compliance burden. It's become more of a responsibility than a burden now. I'll move on to next slide. This is the benefits that GST would bring in for micro and small enterprises. We have many micro and small enterprises hesitating to get into GST bracket, but we are evangelizing through our trade associations for micros and small industries to get into the bracket because the enormous benefits that they can derive out of it. Now, more important thing is the e-commerce. It's mandated that they become GST registered for doing online business. So I expect more and more micro and tiny enterprises to get into GST net. Ma'am, we have had discussions last 5 days with the help of our Principal Chief Commissioner. We had discussions with a lot of trade associations, a lot of industries, micro and tiny. We went there, our team went there. And there are a couple of issues that they would like the government to address. So I'll put that forward now. The beneficial composition scheme has facilitated MSMEs. However, the present threshold limit of 1.5 crores for goods and 50 lakhs for services restricts scope for scheme availment. We request the threshold limit to be enhanced to 5 crores. That means you're covering all micros, if not the small and medium. So that will give a definite advantage to that. Secondly, we also request the government to consider to enhance the threshold limit for services to 40 lakhs, both for intra and interstate supplies. The third one, most micro and small entrepreneurs are hard-pressed for resources and require clarity on changes in law, procedures, due dates, etc. We suggest that a separate MSME committee may be formed with central and state GST authorities with representatives of MSME in each commissionerate. And those representatives can further evangelize within their fraternity and associations. That will bring about definite change and more confidence in the entrepreneurs. On to the last but one slide. Next suggestion we are making is the QRMP is a boon to micro industry. However, request that this be changed to QRQP, at least again for the whole micro industry group. We are talking about turnover of 5 crores, which will benefit 90% of the MSMEs. And the last but not the least is GST is liable to be paid with reference to date of supply, irrespective of receipt of payment from the buyers. With delayed payment received, MSMEs are unable to bear 18% interest liability on delayed payment of tax. Hence, we request the government to reduce the rate of interest payable by the composition and QRMPTP, that means I'm talking about really tiny ones, to 9%, at least for the first 3 months, to provide them substantial relief. A big thank you to the CBIC team for giving us an opportunity to present our case. And we are pretty confident this micro and small and medium industries would be able to generate enough escape velocity to get into next orbit, because that's the desire and intent of micros, to become small, small to medium, medium to large. On that note, thank you once again. Thank you all.
A big thanks to Chennai team for elucidating the impact of GST on MSMEs. The third team we have is from Kolkata, presenting impact of GST on exports. The team consists of Mr. Sushil Patwari, Director, Nagrika Exports Limited, Mr. Mahesh Chandra KL, Partner, Mortex India, Ms. Sonam Kasera, Senior Executive, Kamrup Tea Company, Mr. Praveen Agarwal, Director, Quality Bag Exporters Private Limited, Mr. Yogesh Gupta, Director, Mega Moda Private Limited, Mr. Vinod Kumar Podar, Director, KP Commodities Private Limited, Mr. Jitendra Lohia, Director, Raven Metals Private Limited, Mr. Ranjit Kumar Saha, Director, IP Traders Private Limited, Mr. Biswajit Mitra, Senior Manager, Tata Steel Limited, Mr. Rajesh Gupta, Director, Metropoli Fashions Private Limited, Mr. Tanveer Ahmed, Partner, Danish Export Corporation. The team is pivoted by Ms. Rama Matthew, Principal Chief Commissioner, CGST Kolkata Zone. Presentation will be made by Ms. Sonam Kasera. She is CEO of Kamrup Tea and a board member of FIO, which is one of the leading association of exports in India.
Good morning, Honorable Madam, Honorable Sir, and other dignitaries present on and off the dais. I am honored to be given an opportunity to present my views on the impact of GST on exports. Let us understand this by seeing the scenario in pre-GST era versus post-GST era. In the pre-GST era, there were various incidental taxes in course of exports which were not refunded, as only central excise, service tax, and VAT were refunded. Multiple tax structures for the same product across different states created a state of confusion for us to ascertain costs. Further, various laws, physical interface, manual processes made it tedious, errors in filing of returns, and delayed our refunds. Furthermore, even the cumbersome central laws made it difficult and time-consuming to transport goods from one state to another. Like in our case, ma'am, if earlier when we wanted to bring teas from Guwahati to Kolkata, it used to take 10 to 12 days, which now just takes 3 to 4 days. So overall, in earlier, all these factors, it enhanced the cost of Indian goods, making it less competitive in international market. Now, if we go to with the introduction of GST, Now, the introduction of GST played a significant role in enhancing ease of doing business. It brought the one community, one return. The entire process has been automated, right from filing of returns to getting our refunds. Once our shipping bill is validated, the IGST refunds are directly credited into our bank account. Hence, we do not need to have any physical interface with the department. Further, even for merchant and exporters, they have been granted the facility of paying tax at a nominal rate of 0.10%. Even supplies made to EOU and SEZ are treated as deemed exports. All these help to ease and free our working capital. Madam, another milestone what GST brought is that there is a similar treatment between goods and services, brought export of services at par with exports of goods. So all these reduce the cost and ease compliances, which encourage people like me to export. The fact that more businesses are actively engaged in exports can be seen from the fact that the number of IECs and the number of GSTins engaged in exports have been steadily rising since 2017. Also, these measures have made Indian exports much more competitive in the international market, which led to increase in our merchandise exports from 303 billion US dollars to 422 billion US dollar in just 5 years. Also, there has been a real-time growth in value of exports, which can be seen in this data, wherein not just the number of shipping bills filed with customs has increased, but also the value of goods being exported out of India has seen a steady growth since the implementation of GST in 2017. Before concluding, as an exporter, I would like to suggest some measures to further strengthen the spirit of GST. A, if petroleum and electricity could be brought under GST. Secondly, online registration of one common AD code across all EDI port. And also the changes in same should be facilitated electronically without any manual or physical interface with the officers. Like, ma'am, today I am a tea exporter. If I want to export teas from Kolkata or Mundra or Cochin port, my AD code registered at Kolkata port should suffice. I should not be required to go through the process of re-registration of the AD code at different EDI ports. This will not only help us to facilitate our exports, this will reduce our turnaround time. Thirdly, ma'am, if we could have the facility of granting IGST refund for foreign travelers, it will boost tourism, it will boost handicrafts, it will boost gem and jewelry. Like, ma'am, when we travel to Singapore or Europe, we get the VAT refund. Fourthly, from the compliance perspective, if the EDPMS of RBI could be integrated with GSTIN and IceGate, it will further ease compliances for we exporters. We exporters would not be required to submit same document to multiple departments. Like, ma'am, today we are required to submit EBRC to, say, customs, then GST. So this would ease off. And even from the department perspective, it will make monitoring more easier as the entire departments will be integrated in one system. Lastly, before I conclude, I would like to conclude by saying that the biggest benefit GST has brought to me, being a businesswoman, I can now devote more time into growing my business rather than focusing on compliances. I would like to thank all the stakeholders present here and outside for their role in successful implementation of GST. Once again, thank you, madam, for giving an MSME exporter like me an opportunity to be here and share my thoughts. Jai Hind.
I thank the Kolkata team for such an illustrious presentation. Fourth team is representing Madhya Pradesh and Chhattisgarh. They are presenting on simplification of GST procedure. The team consists of Shri D.D. Goyal, Member, National Tax Committee, CII, Shri Uday Pimprikar, Chairman, CII, National Committee Taxation, Ms. Smriti Kona Datta, Member, CII, National Committee Taxation, Shri Ajmer Singh Bisla, Senior Advisor, Indirect Tax, CII, Shri Nilesh Mundra, State Secretary, Chhattisgarh Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Shri Kanti Patel, State Youth Secretary, Chhattisgarh Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Shri B.K. Gupta, Executive Committee Member, URLA Industries Association, Raipur, Shri Vivek Arora, Executive Committee Member, URLA Industries Association, Raipur. This team is pivoted by Shri Navneet Goyal, Chief Commissioner, Bhopal Zone. Presentation will be made by Shri D.D. Goyal. He has a wide experience of dealing with a large unit, that is Maruti, as its general manager, indirect taxation, and also small and medium units all over India, and therefore is the correct person to throw light on how the procedures have evolved over time.
Greetings, Honorable Finance Minister, other dignitaries on the dais, senior officers from CBIC. I'm grateful for giving me this occasion, and greetings again on the 5th anniversary of GST Day. I am member of CII National Tax Committee and GST Task Force. I would like to convey extreme gratefulness and thanks to the present government and GST Council under leadership of Honorable Finance Minister of bringing this miracle of GST which we never thought of. It has made life of business very simple, one biggest point, I would say, uniform tax all over India. It has made vehicle pricing, if I say from my industry, all large. A very simple marketing, people's life has become simple. Otherwise, pricing of all major goods in NCR, neighboring states, was a nightmare. Similar way, tax cost across the state, across the method of sale or purchase is same. There is no extra cost in any method. Hence, all business decisions can be taken based purely on the merit without looking at tax cost. Another very major refund method is seamless input credit across any method. Otherwise, there was a big work of getting input credit refund from state governments. And last major simplification, lot of saving of no need of any C form, D form. Otherwise, the large teams and lot of paperwork was involved with that. Once again, gratefulness to the government for bringing this miracle. Now let me take you through some of the simplification relating to process. The process consists from registration and ends in case of some litigation. In the registration, again, the digital way of registration has helped the trade at all levels, being small or being large organizations. Similar way, this Aadhaar-based verification also is very helpful. We are conscious of the fact of some, I would say, registration by the fake entities, and we fully support the government on what are the countermeasures government plan to do to avoid this menace of fake registrations. The next is invoice, ITC, and the payment of tax. After registration, all SSEs, when they dispatch the goods, invoicing has to be done. Again, e-invoicing is a good way of a digital movement, and also it will help in the paperless working. The input tax credit, again, is seamless, an excellent way so that net tax get paid. I have one or two suggestions on input tax credit. Today, because of Section 17(5), some essential business expenditures are in the negative list or input credit is not allowed. For example, construction of factory by manufacturer is outside the GST input credit, or specific vehicles built by the vehicle manufacturer for R&D purpose are excluded. We are hopeful in the review of 17(5), these points would be suitably examined. The returns, again, we are again thankful for a very simple composition sort of returns and online digital returns. Maybe for a very small SSEs, if the government can think of a further simple form like Saral and income tax to help small SSEs. The next procedural simplification on the refunds, again, this digital mode of refund filing has helped the industry like anything. Now, refund on the export of goods has become very fast and smooth. There is no need of moving around anywhere. Automatically in your bank account refund comes. However, we are conscious there are some issues relating to inverted duty structure, refund, and there is some complexities there. If those issues can be addressed, plus small amounts, let us say up to 5 lakh, if auto refund can be given and scrutiny can be done later, it would also help the industry and save a lot of administrative work. The last point is audit and assessments. We are very happy the government is using a very scientific method of data analytics, and on that basis, the scrutiny and audits are taking place. There can be one or two more area of suggestions, like income tax. If some discrepancy is there, if it can be informed electronically through web portal, and SSA is given some time to rectify that. Same way, because of the GST, now large organizations have to take registration in each state, maybe small offices, and today audit has to be done for each state. If a facility of centralized audit to large organizations can be given, where consolidated financials and all other documents can be presented, it would also be a very helpful in ease of doing business. Same way for small companies, if some exemption from audit can be given. The last point is the litigation management. in the tax administration, it is natural to have some disputes, and if those disputes can be settled quickly and in a fair way, it would also help the industry. Once again, thanks to Honorable Finance Minister, under her leadership, GST Council, we believe, have taken decision to establish GST tribunals, and we are looking forward for establishment of that. Thank you. Once again, thanks to all.
Thank you, MPN Chhattisgarh team, for showing us how simple the procedures have become under GST. Fifth team is from Delhi, presenting on digitalization and formalization under GST. The team consists of Shri Azizur Rahman, partner, PwC, Global Tax Transformation, Shri Archit Gupta, CEO, Clear Tax, Shri Ramesh Lakshminarayan, CIO and Group IT Head, HDFC Bank, Shri Pramod Jain, Head of Taxation, Flipkart. The team is pivoted by Shri Manish Sinha, CEO, GSTN. The presentation would be made by Shri Pramod Jain, who has wide experience in taxation and has been working with Big Four firms. Working with various tax committees of industry chambers, Shri Jain has contributed immensely in policy planning and ease of doing business.
Honorable dignitaries on the dais and friends, I'm going to speak about impact of GST, digitization and formalization. Digitization of GST compliances is a living testimony of Digital India, a vision laid down by our Prime Minister several years ago. It has been the backbone of successful rollout and implementation of GST in a country as big and as complex as India. Digital platform created by India for GST compliances provides us a single platform for all registrations across central government and 36 states across India and union territories. Pre-GST, we had to go to 40 different states and central government offices to obtain each of the registrations. Now there is a single platform where I can obtain all those 40 registrations. The same platform gives us the flexibility and the enablement to raise e-way bills and invoicing. Same platform enables me to make payments to more than 40 different authorities across India without even leaving my office for a minute. This platform, same single one platform, gives us the enablement to file tax returns for which we had to engage different advisors in different states. All those 40 tax returns can be filed at just a click of a button, just in sitting in my office. Now, this is a simple example of what GST has done for industry, trade, and commerce. It has significantly reduced our cost of compliances, has significantly made us more efficient in managing our time. And if I can talk about what GST digitization has done, it has created a huge impact on formalization of the economy. The informal economy, which used to be 52% before GST, has shrunk to 18%. And it is just 5 years. And ma'am, on a lighter note, if I could say, I acquired my professional degree in taxation during excise and sales tax regime, grew up with service tax and VAT. I was hoping that I'll grow older with the same regime. I feel I'm growing younger with GST. The second big thing I'll talk about is e-invoicing and e-way bills. If I have to say, e-invoicing, which was enabled in October 2020 for taxpayers with turnover of more than 500 crores, and preceded by e-way bills in April 2018. These two initiatives have been the real game changers for GST compliances. And if I have to speak for industry as a seller and as a buyer, as a seller, I can raise my invoices through the digital platform for GST, and my sales is auto-populated in GSTR1. I do not have to pull out data from different systems. And as a purchaser, the input tax credit automatically flows into my electronic credit ledger without me tracking physical invoices or any other documents. So it could not have been a better system. And this limit has been reduced from 500 crore to 20 crores over the last 18 months. The benefits, and I would strongly place before your good self to consider reducing the limit even further from 20 crore to 10 crores and 5 crores in a phased manner. Third one, on the GST ecosystem. It has given a huge spur to the digital economic activity. Now, GST has increased the speed of movement of goods from one state to another by 3 times, and having a significant impact on reducing the logistics cost for the industry. Now, in pre-GST regime, as a large e-commerce company, we had to locate our warehouses based on arbitrage between the VAT rates and the CST rates. Now, tax considerations are no longer the considerations for location of my warehouses. It's purely and purely supply chain efficiency. The ecosystem created by GST, look at how many business opportunities have come for GST Suvidha providers, application service providers, e-invoicing partners, companies supporting digital payment through QR codes, digital record retention, and host of lot of other economic activities have come just because of digitization of GST compliances in India. And if I'm not exaggerating, we're probably one of the biggest and best GST compliance systems anywhere in the world. Now, on the e-payment side, 98% of indirect tax payments in the country are happening through e-payment platform, digital platform, and just 2% payments get made across the counter. Now, it could not have been a bigger success than 98% government money comes through e-payments. On the way forward, just 3 asks, but big asks. One is, as a large company, as a large industry, we would like to know the compliance status of my suppliers, whether they are filing tax returns, are they paying taxes in time, they are filing tax returns in time, and there was a provision in GST law to provide a star rating to every taxpayer so that the purchaser could know whether he is compliant or not. We would like that star rating system to be enabled. For some reasons, it has not been done in the past, but we would like to support the government in curbing the frauds and tax evasion even further. If that star rating could be enabled, ma'am, that could be a great initiative for us. Second one, if we could be allowed paperless invoicing for B2C transactions, and it is just not a digital initiative, it's an initiative to save our Mother Earth also, the number of trees that we'll be able to save by just enabling paperless invoices. And the third one, again linked to the vision laid down by our Honorable Prime Minister, India is aspiring to become a $5 trillion economy. GST digital platform has to get more robust to support that $5 trillion economy. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure interacting with you and for this opportunity.
दिल्ली की टीम को हम उनकी इस उल्लेखनीय प्रेजेंटेशन के लिए धन्यवाद देते हैं। जीएसटी को लागू हुए आज 5 वर्ष हो गए हैं और जीएसटी द्वारा किए गए राष्ट्रीय एकीकरण और बाधा रहित व्यापार के इस 5 वर्ष के सफर को संजोते हुए करदाता सेवाएं निदेशालय ने एक कर एक बाजार @ 5 फिल्म का निर्माण किया है। चलिए अब हम जीएसटी के इस सफर को देखते हैं।
जीएसटी सिर्फ एक टैक्स रिफॉर्म नहीं है, लेकिन वो आर्थिक रिफॉर्म का भी एक अहम कदम है। जीएसटी आर्थिक रिफॉर्म से भी आगे एक सामाजिक रिफॉर्म का भी एक नया तबका जो एक ईमानदारी के उत्सव की दिशा में ले जाने वाला ये बन रहा है। कानून की भाषा में जीएसटी गुड्स एंड सर्विस टैक्स के रूप में जाना जाता है, लेकिन जीएसटी से जो लाभ मिलने वाले हैं, और इसलिए मैं ये कहूंगा कि कानून भले कहता हो कि गुड्स एंड सर्विस टैक्स, लेकिन हकीकत में ये गुड एंड सिंपल टैक्स है।
GST, a landmark step towards economic reforms, as our Honorable Prime Minister puts it. But what makes it historic, or the biggest tax reform in the history of independent India? Firstly, multiple taxes were subsumed into one. Secondly, the challenge of cascading of taxes or tax on tax was resolved. Thirdly, barriers to interstate trade were removed. And fourthly, the regional imbalances due to skewed availability of revenue have been addressed. Well, a momentous change like GST is bound to pose challenges, and the requirement of uniform and dynamic decision-making was the first challenge. Providing an appropriate administrative system to implement GST was yet another challenge due to the existence of multiple tax administrations. An innovative solution of assignment of taxpayer base and cross-empowerment was worked out to provide a single interface. A new system opened up a huge gap in terms of capacity building. Apart from the law, the entire business processes were new, as GST was conceptualized as a digital tax. The National Academy of Customs and Indirect Taxes took a lead, and in coordination with state training academies, has imparted training to almost all the officers of the centre and the states. But the biggest challenge was the need to strike a balance between the need for trade facilitation and ensuring compliance. The first step in this direction was tax rate rationalization. This was done by reducing the number of entries in the highest slab, which is 28%. Rectification of inverted duty rate structures, and timely clarifications were issued. The net result has been a drastic reduction in disputes on rates. A special focus was given to the MSME sector, which led to the introduction of threshold exemption limits and increase thereof, introduction of composition scheme, introduction of QRMP scheme, facility to file nil returns through SMS, and many other such reforms to ease the compliance burden of the MSME sector. Along with MSMEs, a continuous attention has been paid to help the exporters to become more competitive. Introduction of LUTs instead of bonds, a special scheme for merchant exporters, automation of refund process along with the provision of a single disbursement authority are among the many steps taken. The challenge of putting in place a robust IT system was addressed by setting up GSTN. Tax frauds or tax evasion is a big bane of any taxation system. The wrong availment of ITC on the basis of fake invoices made by fraudulent entities is a major challenge. A number of steps have been taken in coordination and close cooperation with state governments to curb the menace by better targeting with use of big data analytics to identify fraudulent entities, mandatory requirement of Aadhaar, blocking of return filing and e-way bills, and blocking of ITC. Taxpayer awareness and education added a new dimension to the GST story. Right from the year 2017, an extensive outreach was conducted using a 360-degree approach to address any misgivings the people might have had about GST. Continuous efforts have been made during the last 5 years to spread awareness about various changes in the law and procedure. We now rely on web platforms to conduct webinars, even in vernacular languages. The biggest outcome of the consistent efforts of the last 5 years is the revenue buoyancy. Since the rollout of GST, the average monthly GST revenue has shown a positive trend. For April 2022, this has peaked to the highest ever GST revenue collection at rupees 1.68 lakh crores. This shows that the GST regime has not only stabilized, but also is delivering the results. Another remarkable aspect of the GST success story is the increase in taxpayer base. And as on 1st June 2022, the total number of registered taxpayers is around 1.37 crore, as against a total of 66.25 lakh taxpayers on 1st July 2017. In terms of digitalization, the journey of the last 5 years can be seen as a process of continuous refinement, fine-tuning, and improvement in return filing experience. E-invoicing facility, which was introduced on the 1st of October 2020, has picked up substantially and has evoked a very positive response. The e-way bill system, introduced on the 1st of April 2018 to remove barriers to interstate trade, has seen remarkable adoption by taxpayers. The facility for auto-population has led to a considerable jump in on-time and proper filing of returns due to greater data integrity. An important yardstick with which the efficiency of an IT-driven system to have a look at the grievances raised or tickets generated. There has been a drastic fall in the number of tickets or grievances from 66 in August 2017 to 2 in April 2022. To improve user experience, the IT system of GSTN has been completely revamped, and the capacity of GST portal is enhanced to increase the user concurrency from 1.5 lakh to 3 lakh. The continuous reforms have made the whole return filing process much smoother, and that is why it is called GST, a good and simple tax.
When the economic history of this period is written, one of the most transformational reforms of India will undoubtedly be the introduction of the Goods and Services Tax.
The journey over the last 5 years, after the introduction of the GST, has been phenomenally good from an industry point of view.
This regime or this framework is visionary in that it also promotes the larger causes and the larger goals of our nation. For example, the GST on electric vehicles is just at 5%. Electric vehicles are all about green transport and is being promoted in order to reduce pollution in our cities.
The whole country got benefited, especially industries, and when we say the logistic industries, where cost of the per kilometer get reduced.
It is one nation, one document process.
जीएसटी आने से एक बहुत बड़ा बेनिफिट क्या मिला कि जो हमारे बायर्स हैं ना, उनको भी हमारी नेटवर्थ, एक्चुअल हमारी क्रेडिबिलिटी पता लगती है.
After the implementation of GST, we don't have to run now from pillar to post for obtaining registration or for filing returns.
The GST Council has been very successful in implementing change by taking everyone on board.
It has given honest taxpayers an opportunity to be proud of their honesty and gain speed and efficiency in their activities.
इनिशियली तो काफ़ी सारे ग्लिचेस थे जीएसटी में, बट उसके बाद धीरे धीरे इंप्रूव होते होते आज ये बहुत सही लेवल पे चल रहा है।
We've been business manufacturing high precision components such as crankshafts, which is also known as the heart of the engine. GST implementation has definitely been a boon for our industry.
We are very happy with the way India has implemented one nation, one tax policy of the goods and service tax.
मैं आज 1 जुलाई 2022 को जीएसटी दिवस के ऊपर अपने समस्त व्यापारी वर्ग और भारत सरकार को बधाई देता हूं।
इस अद्भुत फिल्म के लिए हम करदाता सेवाएं निदेशालय के आभारी हैं। अब मैं अध्यक्ष सीबीआईसी श्री विवेक जौहरी से अनुरोध करता हूं कि वह सभा के समक्ष अपना संबोधन रखें।
Very good afternoon to all of you. Honorable Union Minister for Finance and Corporate Affairs, Srimati Nirmala Sitharaman ji, Honorable MOS Finance, Shri Pankaj Chaudhary ji, Shri Tarun Bajaj, Revenue Secretary, my respected seniors, many of whom are here today to bless this occasion, my colleagues from the board, my colleagues from the CBDT, the awardees and their families who are here also in very large numbers. Dear probationers, I think were there in the hall. And ladies and gentlemen, let me begin by conveying my greetings to the entire GST community and particularly the taxpayers on this 5th anniversary of GST, which we're celebrating today. As you recall, GST was widely recognized and acclaimed as the most significant tax reform ever, described variously by different experts as a tectonic shift in tax architecture. Someone else called it an unprecedented move in modern global tax history. But the scale and depth of the reform, its profundity, its magnitude and complexity is often not fully appreciated. Let us recall that this tax was something that emerged out of consensus among the center, 29 states, and the union territories, which in itself was a very daunting challenge. On the 5th anniversary of GST, it's natural to ask the question whether it's been a success, and if so, to what extent, even as we know that GST is still a work in progress. The question is, how do you benchmark its performance? Now, the way I see it, there are several ways in which you can do this. One is the perspective of taxpayers. And just a short while ago, we had 5 distinguished taxpayers who've come and shared their experience of how GST has transformed their lives as businesses ever since its inception. They've talked about the different aspects of its impact and delineated for us in detail their specific sort of impact on their lives. And overall, I think it's quite easy for us to see that the picture that emerges is quite positive. I would urge all of you to reflect for a moment whether you could have imagined a few years ago, and I think I'm qualified to say this because I've handled tax policy for long years. It was extremely difficult to imagine only a few years ago that there could ever be a one-stroke solution to complex problems of a fractured tax base, suboptimal from the point of view of revenue efficiency, multiplicity of taxes and rates, embedded taxes, cascading, and inadequate tax neutralization for exports. In fact, for most of these problems, we found what I would call second-best solutions from time to time. And now we find the GST has, in one stroke, by one sleight of hand, found a solution to almost all these problems simultaneously. The report card which the taxpayers just presented, as I said, appears to be a very balanced and positive one. Of course, there were specific issues raised, and many of them the GST Council has already addressed, and some of them are in the making. For example, one of the presenters talked about reducing the threshold for invoices to 5 crores. And that is a decision that's already been taken, and it's about to be implemented. IGST, there was a concern raised about IGST refunds and delays in some cases in sanctioning and remitting these refunds to taxpayers. In the 47th meeting of the GST Council, I would like to inform the House, a decision was taken to transfer the cases of blocked IGST refunds from customs authorities in whose case these refunds get sanctioned and remitted automatically to the GST authorities so that a final decision on the status of these refunds can be taken. I would also like to inform the House that we've launched a major campaign, and I would like to thank Member GST, who's here, for dealing with a large number of IGST refunds that were pending on account of the identification of somebody in the value chain as a risky exporter. A large number of these verifications were pending in different formations, and I would like to thank all the chief commissioners and the field formations for addressing this problem squarely and bringing down a very substantial reduction in the number of claims that continue to pend with us. There was a suggestion made also about star rating of taxpayers. Now, this is something that GSTN has already developed for a while, but there were some issues about, data privacy, about whether it's the right thing to do, conceptually, of bringing out a star rating of taxpayers. So that is what has held it up. But it isn't as if that idea hasn't already been thought of. So what I'm giving you is a somewhat qualitative assessment, and I'm deliberately not sort of mentioning statistics, which you would have seen in the presentation that we went through this morning. What I would like to add, it's not just that it has imparted these benefits on the economy, but they're very positive externalities for the larger socioeconomic system in which we operate. And some of them that I would like to mention are digitalization. I think there was one whole presentation on that. Formalization of the economy. It shows up in the number of taxpayers that are entering the GST taxpayer base every month. Another big spin-off of the GST, as I see it, is the awareness in India about taxes that it has generated. I don't recall any time in our history where we've discussed and talked so much publicly about the impact of taxes and what they mean to us, and particularly indirect taxes. So I think that's a very big spin-off, which is going to raise awareness about compliance. It's going to raise awareness generally about what taxes mean and how the revenues from taxes are used for social good. The other implication of GST, which is very easy to see and which came through, I think, quite clearly in all the presentations that we went through, was the logistics efficiency that it has imparted on the economy. It was impossible to imagine that it would be so easy to transport goods from one part of the country to another under the CST regime that we lived under for so many years. Like someone explained, there was so much paperwork to go through. There was a rate arbitrage that was available. It was misused, quite a lot. And therefore, the state governments and state administrations were compelled to put up checkposts and to physically examine and stop the trucks while they were moving. And with the adoption of IGST, it has made it so easy for goods to move from one corner of the country to the other without any hassles. It simplified life for the taxpayer. I really admire their forbearance, patience, and adaptability to change. I think Indian industry and business have done us proud by embracing this change so openly, even though there have been complaints about minor glitches. But as I said right at the beginning, I don't know whether we stop to think about how deep and how large and expansive this reform has been. But I've never seen an ideological objection to GST. So when I talk to taxpayers, and we've seen some of their presentations today, and even otherwise in the discourse on GST, I'm unable to find any ideological sort of negativity about GST. Now let's go to the other benchmark of the international experience. And we can do this because we entered into GST a little later than others. Of course, we will have to make allowances for our differences and uniqueness, but I think, on the whole, our experience compares very favorably with our peer group. Take, for example, the dynamic that many countries like ours have struggled with between over-centralization under GST and a very licentious regime where different levels of government impose different taxes at different rates. I think we've struck a very, very good balance in doing that. I would like to cite to you the example of Brazil and Argentina, who I think are still plagued by too much sort of decentralization in their GST system, and therefore multiplicity of rates and taxes. Australia is an example which, in whose case the implementation of GST was very badly impacted by the lack of clarity about forms and procedure. I don't think we've had any major sort of setback of that nature or that scale. And the third important element of GST, which has plagued many countries, including Malaysia, has been the tardy and inefficient refunds and passing through of input tax credit in the system. And I think, as we saw for ourselves today, and we know from our experience, GST has really transformed both the passing through of input tax credits across the country, across states, across industries, as well as the refund procedure. Now, the third perspective can be from the tax administration's point of view. And I cannot help but recall, ma'am, the despondency with which the CBIC entered the GST. And there were a lot of misgivings about what GST would do to us, how it would rob us of some of our territory, would we be able to work collaboratively with the states. And I'm so happy to see today that we've been proved completely wrong. I think there's enough work on our plates, much more than we can perhaps handle. That's one. Secondly, it's opened up a big opportunity for us to find solutions to problems at the national scale. We are in a position to provide thought leadership to a lot of problems in GST. And that's visible, ma'am, from the work that TRU and the GST policy wing of CBIC have been doing, both in drafting the law, through the Fitment Committee, through the convenership of the Law Committee, both in drafting the law, in changing procedures, in liberalizing procedures, in rate rationalization, removal of exemptions, and what have you. I think it's a very big opportunity and a platform for the CBIC. The third thing that strikes me when I look at it from our perspective is that we've always had a very insular existence. And GST has given us the opportunity to work collaboratively with the states, something that I think we never imagined would happen. It's broken down administrative silos, and the relationship, in most of the cases I find, is extremely happy. We are working on joint strategy for enforcement in many cases. Even in the GST Council, the Law Committee, the Fitment Committee and all, we've worked very collaboratively with the states and continue to do so. I think there's a happy realization now, ma'am, that whether it's the center or the states that takes some good measure on the GST, it equally and impacts both the central and the state governments and their revenue collections. Now, I would like to very briefly talk about what, according to me, have been the critical success factors in the journey of GST. The first one, of course, that needs a mention is the GST Council itself. It's a very unique formation, a mechanism which thanks to Indian genius, has dealt with such difficult issues in a federal or a quasi-federal structure. The decisions, as somebody said, have always been by consensus. There's thorough discussion of each and every issue. At the same time, it's not been a slow-moving mechanism. I think the decisions that have been taken and that needed to be taken have been taken with a lot of alacrity and as quickly as possible. In fact, during the COVID period, you would recall that the GST Council has been extremely responsive to the needs of the trade, whether it was in terms of rationalizing the late fee structure, of extending timelines, or in providing a COVID package by reducing rates on products which are meant for use by COVID patients. The second critical success factor, as I see it, has been the adoption of a technology platform called the GSTN. I don't think there could have been a better way of implementing GST than to adopt this method of doing it. And as we've heard from many of our peers in industry and business, it has really transformed lives and the spin-off benefits that I talked about earlier. The third thing which has contributed, I think, to the success of GST has been the comprehensive outreach and hand-holding of taxpayers, as well as officers within the department that we've been doing right from its inception, and in fact, even in the run-up to it. I recall the very large number of training programs that both national and state governments organized for taxpayers throughout the country. And I don't think there was any tax official who was left untouched by those initiatives. And last but not the least has been the unique model of IGST, which I think is a very big contributor, and we don't realize its significance. There's no country in the world which is of a federal nature which has adopted a similar solution to interstate or sub-federal movement of goods and services without the need for refunds when goods cross borders. I think it's a very unique Indian solution, and I think we need to applaud ourselves for it. Now, the way forward, ma'am, as I see it, and from the CBIC perspective, some of the things that we need to work on are definitely further improving compliance, whether and depending on where that taxpayer is on the compliance scale, if he needs just education and handholding, or he needs very strict enforcement, I think we should go for it, and we should go for a very concerted compliance strategy. We are wanting to do it in a less intrusive way by using AI and ML as far as possible for profiling taxpayers, for ensuring that it's not left to the discretion of individual officers to go after taxpayers, and that it's based on some basic analysis, in a centralized manner. We want to improve data quality in the returns. We want to prescribe SOPs for enforcement activity. The board is already working on that. And I think we need a more systematized grievance redressal mechanism, ma'am, particularly to deal with MSMEs. And we heard one of our representatives from the MSME sector just say that we should have more focused MSME-related outreach programs, which I assure you, ma'am, we'll work on. And the last but not the least, I think we need to work on the dispute settlement mechanism. I think the government is already thinking of a solution. So with those few words, ma'am, I would like to once again greet everyone on the 5th anniversary of the GST. And I'd like to thank each one of you, and particularly the Finance Minister and the Honorable MOS for sparing their time, for being with us today. Thank you very much.
धन्यवाद महोदय, अपने शब्दों द्वारा हमें प्रोत्साहन देने के लिए। अब मैं राजस्व सचिव श्री तरुण बजाज से अनुरोध करता हूं कि वह सभा को संबोधित करें।
A very good afternoon to all of you. Honorable Union Finance and Corporate Affairs Minister Shrimati Nirmala Sitharaman ji, Minister of State for Finance, Shri Pankaj Chaudhary ji, Shri Vivek Johri, Chairman CBIC, Shri Nagendra Kumar, Member GST, all the senior officers from CBDT and CBIC sitting here, members of the trade, media, and I understand the probationers are also here. My greetings to them as well. And not the least, I see some faces who have been part of CBIC in the past and who are sitting here today. My greetings to them specially. I would first of all like to felicitate my felicitations to all of you for the 5th GST day that we are celebrating today. I say this though I have been involved in the GST for the last year and a half, but I have seen it growing as part of the Prime Minister's office, and I see some faces who would be visiting the PMO to explain what was going on, and it was really hard days during those days. But I'm sure today when you see and the presentations that you have seen, you would definitely be pleased to see how it has evolved and the way forward that has been mentioned by the CBIC chairman and how we plan to take it forward. I think it would give you a lot of satisfaction. At least in the year and a half, I have seen a lot of change in the GST regime, and it gives me a lot of happiness as to how we have proceeded here. I would also like to compliment the 5 presentations that were made here and the 5 presenters. And I think, if I may quote the Honorable FM, she was complimenting the way you are making presentations. It is for us also to learn from you as to how to make very concise and precise presentations. And when I saw the presentations and the comments given by you, I thought in today's address of mine, I would have nothing more to add to it, and I'll not add anything to it. You have said it all. And the best thing is when it comes from the mouth of people who are actually paying taxes on a tax regime that is being implemented for them. So I think nothing better than that. I would only like to add 2-3 sentences here to say that you have also made a few suggestions in your presentations. More than anybody else, I can say it for CBIC. CBIC has been very open to these critiques on their regime and are always ready to take steps to improve it. The chairman has already responded to a few of your suggestions, but I, as Revenue Secretary, assure you that all your suggestions have been taken note of and we'll work on it. And maybe next year when we come here, we'll try to give you a better report of the suggestions that you gave to us. I completely agree with the statement made by a few of you that a lot of work needs to be done. I have been part of the council for the last year and a half and maybe been part of it as member secretary and done about 4 or 5 GST council meetings. And I would say I'm very pleased at the polity or the federal structure that is visible in that meeting, and we had one only 2 days ago. It is very interesting to see how those decisions are taken, and much as my media friends might try to depict outside, the inside environment is very conducive to taking very positive decisions for the welfare of the taxpayers and for ensuring that the revenues come to the state so that they are able to take welfare measures. But not to say, there are a lot of measures which need to be taken. Some of it have already been spoken about. I assure on behalf of the CBIC and the Department of Revenue that we would be striving to take those decisions for 2 things. One, to ensure ease of doing business, ease of tax paying by the taxpayer community, and on the other hand, to ensure that the taxes which are due to the government come so that the government is able to take its policies in terms of social welfare and other development, infrastructure development forward. And GST really contributes, because I feel 5 years or 10 years hence, GST is going to be our only and the important indirect taxation measure that will be there in the system. So with these words, we are eagerly looking forward to what our political executive heads would have to say to us, and I'll not add anything more. My greetings to all of you once again for this 5th year of GST. Thank you so much.
धन्यवाद महोदय, अपने शब्दों से हम सबको प्रेरणा देने के लिए। अब मैं माननीय वित्त राज्य मंत्री श्री पंकज चौधरी से निवेदन करता हूं कि वह यहाँ उपस्थित सभी अतिथियों को संबोधित करें।
मंच पर उपस्थित वित्त मंत्री परम आदरणीय निर्मला सीतारमन जी, रेवेन्यू सेक्रेटरी श्री तरुण बजाज जी, चेयरमैन सीबीआईसी श्री विवेक जौहरी जी, डीपी नागेंद्र जी, यहाँ उपस्थित जीएसटी के अधिकारीगण, आयकर के अधिकारीगण, सेवानिवृत्त अधिकारीगण, उपस्थित भाई और बहनों, आजाद भारत का सबसे बड़े कर सुधार का काम जीएसटी ने किया था मित्रों। और 2014 में जब मोदी जी के नेतृत्व में सरकार बनी तो निश्चित तौर से मोदी जी ने जीएसटी लागू करने को सोचा। और आज के दिन मैं निश्चित तौर से अपने नेता जेटली जी को भी नमन करना चाहता हूं, उनको श्रद्धा सुमन भी देना चाहता हूं कि जो वर्षों से लंबित पड़ा था, मात्र 3 साल में उन्होंने देश के सभी राज्यों को एक टेबल पर सहमति के साथ बैठाने का काम किया। और तब जाकर के 30 जून 2017 को, क्योंकि मैं खुद उसका साक्षी हूं, कि सेंटर हॉल में मध्य रात्रि को आदरणीय प्रधानमंत्री जी ने जीएसटी को लागू करने का झंडी दिया मित्रों। और अगर आप देखें तो सेंटर हॉल में मुझे मोदी जी की वो बात याद है जो मैं यहां कहना चाहता हूं कि जिस प्रकार से सरदार वल्लभ भाई पटेल ने कई रियासतों को एक करने में योगदान देकर भारत को एकीकृत किया, वैसे ही जीएसटी आर्थिक एकीकरण के लिए लाया गया है। यदि हम 29 राज्यों, 7 केंद्र शासित प्रदेशों, केंद्र के 7 करों, राज्य के 8 करों और विभिन्न वस्तुओं के लिए कई अलग अलग करों को अगर ध्यान में रखें तो करों की संख्या 500 के आंकड़े तक पहुंच जाती है। और आज गंगानगर से ईटानगर तक और लेह से लक्षद्वीप तक एक राष्ट्र एक कर को साकार करने के लिए उन सभी करों को एक ही कर में समाहित कर दिया गया है। ये प्रधानमंत्री जी ने जो सेंटर हॉल में इस विषय को कहा था, और निश्चित तौर से जिस प्रकार से सरदार वल्लभ भाई पटेल ने 562 रियासतों जो खुद टैक्स भरते हैं उसकी अच्छाइयों और कठिनाइयों को खुद समझते हैं, जो 5 प्रेजेंटेशन हुआ है, मुझे लगता है कि हमारे 5 साल के इस सफर का गाथा उसमें बखूबी उन्होंने बताने का काम किया है। एक अच्छा और सरल टैक्स है ये। माननीय वित्त मंत्री जी के नेतृत्व में अगर देखें तो विगत कई वर्षों से जीएसटी की अनेक उपलब्धियां हमें प्राप्त हुई हैं मित्रों। जीएसटी का लागू होना जो कोऑपरेटिव संघवाद का एक मिसाल है। अभी मैं जीएसटी 47वीं जीएसटी काउंसिल में मैं चंडीगढ़ से आया हूं, और पहला मैं लखनऊ में जब ज्वाइन किया था तो मन में बहुत क्यूरियोसिटी थी कि सारे प्रदेश के वित्त मंत्री बैठेंगे, काफ़ी नोक झोंक होगा, बहस होगी। लेकिन माननीय वित्त मंत्री जी के नेतृत्व में उनके जो क्षमता है अध्यक्षता करने की, लखनऊ में मैंने देखा या चंडीगढ़ में मैंने देखा कि बहुत नोक-झोंक तो हुई, लेकिन सबने अपने अपने प्रदेश की हित की बात की, हमने अपने देश की, फिर लास्ट में सब लोगों ने राष्ट्र को ध्यान में रख करके कहीं ना कहीं एक मत हो करके सबने निर्णय लिया। जो ये व्यवस्था बना है जीएसटी काउंसिल के सफल मैकेनिज्म विकसित का, ये बहुत बड़े बड़े देशों में भी सफलता प्राप्त नहीं हो पाया। चाहे आज जीएसटी से कहीं चाहे बड़े व्यापारी हो चाहे छोटे व्यापारी हो, सबको कहीं ना कहीं सहूलियत मिला है, सबको लाभ हुआ है। मित्रों, अगर आप कोविड काल में देखें तो जिस प्रकार से जनता और व्यापारियों के लिए जीएसटी के हमारे अधिकारियों ने संवेदनशीलता दिखाया, और उस समय जो राष्ट्र संकट में था, बहुत बड़ी त्रासदी थी, पूरा दुनिया संकट में था, और जीएसटी के हमारे सभी अधिकारियों ने, क्योंकि राष्ट्र को उस समय कर की भी आवश्यकता थी, अपने दायित्वों का निर्वहन किया, वो तारीफ करने योग्य है। मित्रों, और मैं इस विषय को भी ध्यान में रखना चाहता हूं कि उस कोविड के काल में कहीं ना कहीं हमारे बहुत से साथी हमारे बीच में नहीं रहे। मैं उनको भी श्रद्धा सुमन अर्पित करता हूं, उनके परिवार को भी अपने साथ जोड़ने का प्रयास करता हूं। मित्रों, ईज ऑफ डूइंग बिजनेस लाने के लिए प्रशासन ने टेक्नोलॉजी और आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस का सफल उपयोग किया, जिससे आज कहीं ना कहीं टैक्स के चोरी में बहुत कमी आई है और टैक्स कलेक्शन भी कहीं ना कहीं हमारा बढ़ा। मित्रों, मैं करदाता सेवा महानिदेशालय को भी बहुत धन्यवाद देना चाहता हूं, क्योंकि जब जीएसटी लागू हुआ था तो नीचे बहुत उहापोह था, छोटे व्यापारी इसको नहीं समझ पा रहे थे। बड़े व्यापारियों के पास तो सीए थे, वकील थे, लेकिन जो छोटे छोटे टैक्स पेयर्स थे उनके पास कोई सुविधा नहीं थी। लेकिन कहीं ना कहीं जो करदाता सेवा महानिदेशालय ने जागरूकता अभियान चलाया, उन व्यापारियों की बहुत बड़ी मदद करने का काम किया, उनको ट्रेन करने का काम किया। मित्रों, मेरा मानना है अगर देश को आगे बढ़ाना है तो सभी स्टेक होल्डरों को मिलकर चलना होगा, क्योंकि आर्थिक गतिविधियों में वृद्धि करना है, हमें इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर की जरूरत पड़ेगी। इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर के लिए कहीं ना कहीं हमें संसाधन की आवश्यकता होगी, और संसाधन की आवश्यकता के लिए हमें टैक्स कलेक्शन को भी बढ़ाना होगा। मित्रों, और जीएसटी प्रशासन द्वारा इस चक्र में आगे बढ़ाने में महत्वपूर्ण कदम उठाए गए हैं। अगर किसी कानून में बदलाव लाने से हमारा व्यापार और टैक्स दोनों बढ़ता है तो निश्चित तौर से उसको लागू करना चाहिए। वो हमारे देश को एक भारत श्रेष्ठ भारत की ओर ले जाएगा। जीएसटी इन सब कसौटियों पर खरा उतरा है। यही नहीं, देश के प्रधानमंत्री जी देश में हमारा सारे चीजें जो चैलेंजिंग थी वो समाप्त हो, उसके लिए कहीं ना कहीं श्रम कानून में भी परिवर्तन लाया, जो 29 कानूनों को 4 श्रम संहिताओं में बदलने का काम किया, जिसका आज नतीजा है कि आज हमारा देश दुनिया के बड़े अर्थव्यवस्थाओं में सबसे तेज गति से बढ़ने वाला देश बनकर के उभरा है। मित्रों, आज हमारा एफडीआई, रिकॉर्ड एफडीआई हमारे देश में निवेश हो रहा है। आज दुनिया के 10 टॉप देशों में भारत एक है। निर्यात अपने उच्चतर स्तर पर है। इन सब में करने के लिए कहीं ना कहीं आप सबके सहयोग की बड़ी आवश्यकता थी। आज जीएसटी के इस 5वें वर्ष गांठ पे मैं आप सबको बहुत बहुत बधाई देता हूं। खास तौर से मैं अपने यशस्वी प्रधानमंत्री जी को और अपने यशस्वी वित्त मंत्री को खास तौर से आपको मैं बधाई देना चाहता हूं कि बिना आपके सहयोग से यहां पर यह कदम पूरा कर पाना संभव नहीं था। बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।
धन्यवाद महोदय। आपके शब्दों ने ना सिर्फ हमें एक नई ऊर्जा दी है, बल्कि हमारा सही पथ पर मार्गदर्शन भी किया है। On this special occasion, a booklet GST 85 साधन देश के सर्वांगीण विकास का has been compiled by the Directorate General of Taxpayer Services, elucidating the various facets of GST reforms and its benefits like digitalization, simplification, misuse reduction over the past 5 years. I would request Honorable Finance Minister Shrimati Nirmala Sitharaman and other dignitaries on the dais to please do the honors.
सभी गणमान्य को धन्यवाद। करदाता जीएसटी का आधार हैं, करदाता जीएसटी की पहचान है। आज हम अपने ऐसे ही कुछ करदाता जिन्होंने कर अनुपालन कर देश के विकास में योगदान दिया है, उनके प्रति आभार व्यक्त करते हैं। On the occasion of 5th GST Day, the Government of India recognizes the contribution of 50,000 taxpayers to the cause of nation building, and they will be awarded with a certificate of recognition. We are glad to inform that representatives of 5 MSMEs are present here today to receive this commendation certificate from Honorable Finance Minister. I would request the dignitaries on the dais to come forward and please present these certificates. May I now call upon Ramesh Balgopalan from Malabar Cement Limited to come forward and receive the certificate. Shri K. Suresh Kini from Big Tech Private Limited. Shri Prateek Agarwal from Crestron Technologies Limited. Shri Prateek Agarwal from Crestron Technologies Limited. Shri Deepak Chandra from Wow Softech Private Limited. Shri Soham Surve from Y10 Pharmaceuticals Private Limited.
Congratulations to all the awardees. Any organization is built upon the strong shoulders of its officers, and today we celebrate some of the champions who have contributed to the successful implementation of GST by their continued devotion and commitment to duty. In recognition of their exemplary service, commendation certificates will be given to them. May I now call upon Mr. Badri Prasad, MV, Additional Commissioner, CGST Ranchi, to please come forward and receive the certificate. Mr. Nimba Ram, Additional Commissioner, GST Policy Wing. Dr. Praveen Kumar, Additional Director, DG Arm. Ms. Jaipriya Dharanipati, Joint Commissioner, CGST Chennai. Ms. Kangale Shrunkla Moti Ram, Joint Commissioner, CGST Delhi. Mr. Saurabh Dabbas, Joint Director, DG HRD. Ms. Nancy D'Souza, Joint Director, DG Arm. Ms. Nancy D'Souza, Joint Director, DG Arm. Mr. Abhinav Kumar, Deputy Director, DGGI.
Ms. Neha Yadav, Deputy Commissioner, GST Policy Wing. Mr. Divyalok, Deputy Commissioner, TRU1. Mr. Manish Deo Mishra, Deputy Commissioner, GST Policy Wing. Mr. Sanjeet Singh, Deputy Commissioner, CGST Delhi. Mr. Radhe Krishna, Deputy Commissioner, CGST Hyderabad. Ms. Pratiti Goyal, Deputy Commissioner, CGST Mumbai. Mr. Saurabh Badaya, Deputy Commissioner, CGST Panchkula.
Mr. Raju Om Prakash Jetli, Assistant Commissioner, CGST Ahmedabad. Mr. Rajiv Ranjan, Under Secretary, TRU2. Mr. Pankaj Arora, Assistant Director, DGTS. Mr. Mirza Sahid Beg, Superintendent, CGST Bhubaneswar. Mr. S. Venkatesh, Superintendent, CGST Bengaluru. Ms. P. Meenakshi, Superintendent, CGST Hyderabad. Mr. Rakesh Kumar, Superintendent, CGST Kolkata. Mr. Ashwini Kumar Mehla, Superintendent, CGST Mumbai. Mr. Kiran Deshpande, Superintendent, CGST Pune.
Mr. Shailab Pandey, Superintendent, DGHRD. Mr. Rajendra Nath Jha, Superintendent, Nasin. Mr. Naveen Manchanda, Superintendent, DGTS. Mr. Pradyut Purkayast, Superintendent, DGGI. Mr. Ashish Kumar Yadav, Inspector, DG System. Ms. Vaishali Kharbanda, Inspector, DGGST. Mr. Surendra Kumar, Tax Assistant, DLA. Thank you, ma'am and sirs.
We are indeed privileged to have the Honorable Finance Minister amongst us, who took out time from her busy schedule to be here today. May I now request Honorable Finance Minister Shrimati Nirmala Sitharaman to kindly address the gathering.
Congratulations on 1st July. Revenue Secretary Tarun Bajaj, CBIC Chairman Vivek Johri, Member Nagendra Kumar, members of the two boards, former chairpersons of the two boards, and former members of the boards, probationers, all officers, invited guests, and the media. I'm extremely happy to be here today to share the mood which is prevailing today in this House. Not even last year, or certainly not 2 years before, about the GST, even on the 1st of July, I would have had this nicely inspiring and motivational aura in the audience if we were to meet. It is purely thanks to the dedicated hard work that each one of you have done today and over a very trying 5 years. So as much as I would love to start by remembering my mentor, predecessor, political leader, Shri Arun Jaitley, for having spent beautiful hours in the GST Council, and before the GST Council in the empowerment group of ministers, for having brought that amicably, a GST which was waiting to be made in this country for more than 13 or 14 years. So I will certainly love to start remembering Shri Arun Jaitley, who is not with us now, to share this very inspiring, positive, energy-filled, nice atmosphere, because he toiled to bring it all together. MOS Pankaj Chaudhary was right in saying that he somehow within 2 years brought all the state ministers together in the, around the table and brought a consensus which stood the test of time, not just ordinary 5 years. What kind of challenges have we not seen during the 5 years? If after the implementation in 17, 18, there was a bit of a slowdown and there were issues of credit availability in the economy, then came the Lok Sabha elections, and was 19 the year through which we saw a lot of difficulties in the technical availability or the facility, the GSTN and its professional services, the technology, its adaptability, were all throwing a lot of challenges. So if 2019 went in that, 18 and 19 went somewhat because of the election, 19 was also because of difficulties, and that is where in 19, and I'm again happy to the officers who were very open-minded. When there were difficulties in the implementation because of certain technology-related glitches, we had to invite the chartered accountants and also the tax-paying community to come and sit together with the GST officials and resolve the problems. After all, we heard a lot of people say this morning that GST, even as it got launched, was a process which was fully automated. And if indeed you were fully automated, and if your automation was not facilitating, but was full of glitches, And the taxpayers who know when they have to say what they want to say. Today you heard them say what they wanted to say. And there was no stopping us clapping for all the comments that they've given us. But in 2019, they were full of woes. They were full of worry. They were full of anxiety, saying you brought in the system, but I'm sorry, the hardware is not matching up to the expectations. So 2019 was a time when the officers had to go through a lot of suffering, ready to hear criticism, be open-minded to accept the criticism, and be ready also to give quick solutions, because every day was a day causing anxiety for the tax assessee. So in 2017, when it was launched with the great hope of one nation, one tax, we heard the Prime Minister in the presence of former President of India, Shri Pranab Mukherjee, who had himself had quite a long tenure as Finance Minister, knows the importance of the GST. He launched it along with the Prime Minister. So you were bringing in a one nation, one tax, fully automated. But the first 2 years went, and I distinctly remember, when it was launched, I was not the MOS in finance, which I was in 2014. But even as not being a minister in the finance ministry, not just me, on the directions of Honorable Prime Minister, every minister went to their respective state, and if anything, more states, to go explain what the GST is to everybody. All of us went. And the board and the field formations were all with us, moving from one place to another to say, hey, this actually is going to be a good and simple tax. It looked an insurmountable problem at that stage to convince people that it is going to be a good and simple tax. Because the technology also was something which had to be explained to small and medium. Today you have a lot of small and medium industries coming and speaking about how it has facilitated. But the apprehensions that they had in their mind then had to be removed. And they had to be familiarized with the technology which was before them. So 2019 was a time when the hardware was not catching up with the expectation. And I do remember at that time, the GST Council, after a point, I had to invite Sri Nandan Nilekani to come and explain what's happening. Why wouldn't the expectations of the taxpayer be met? Because we did claim that the simplification is going to be technology-driven. And he did come. And when he did come, it was 2020. And you know, 2020, we entered in with the pandemic. And even as that session of the GST Council, again, it happened in Vigyan Bhawan, if I remember correct. That session of the GST Council, there were worries if we'll be able to get the hardware equipments coming from the components coming from different parts of the world, because global trade had already started getting affected. I'm elaborating on these problems only because I was a bit worried when I heard Vivek Johri talk about, at the time of launch of the GST, the CBIC had an existential crisis. You had so much to do. You had so much to steer like a good captain of a big ship. You had to do so much to explain and also bring in that readiness among officers. Today, I was glad to hear, by the same tone, from the chairman CBIC, that you're now thought leaders. You're able to give solutions. You're able to improve the collection. So the contrast in the 5 years, the year of introduction, and today just 5 years. Imagine, just 5 years. And that is why I say you didn't undergo teething problems. You've faced even a pandemic. You've even seen the challenges of technology. You've told even a country like India, which has different states with different levels of developments and big and small businesses, all of whom came to talk today. You could tell them that here you are to support them, improve the systems, real time be with them, and also equally prove by showing the collection. Today, I'm standing before you. In fact, let me start by saying something else first. I'm standing before you to feel so happy that today we have a set of people from the board who can come and give us a good beginning. What a beautiful rendition of Ganesh Vandana was it. You know, the impression about tax authorities in this country, oh my God, tax official, oh my God, are they coming to my house? Are they coming to do a survey? Are they going to do a search? Are they sending me a notice? They are sending you beautiful Ganesh Vandana. What a beautiful beginning was it. You know, actually so talented set of good, beautiful, very skilled people. And the skills range from singing to the award recipient who made an app for you all. I mean, look at the varied talents you have. It's just a beautiful day, I'm telling you today. It's just a beautiful day where each one of your talents directly and not so directly helping the mood of the country. And that's what kept you all going in the 5 years. And as much as I say this, I do remember the days during the lockdown, during the pandemic, when tax collections had to still keep going. We needed the resources to trickle in, and it was only trickles. But even at that time, the way in which the field formations worked, and I actually have a very honest, profound thought for all those who lost their lives during that time. Their families. They may have been just that one breadwinning member of the house. So I do remember them, even as we are talking about what in 5 years we've achieved. I also bow my head in respect for every one of you all who served during the pandemic. Those were very difficult days. Whilst we were worried about the completely dropping collections, today we remember what we can show within a matter of 5 years. And they were not ordinary years. Of the 5 years, 2 years went with the pandemic, lockdown, national level lockdown, and then state level, and then some containment zones. So it was never the same. But you still managed to get the highest collection in not so high earning month. April, May, June are not brilliant months, maybe April, but May and June are not great months for collection. But you still managed to get great collections. Within the 5 years, the GST is showing what it is. And the first thing I spoke about the Ganesh Vandana and the talent that you have. And let me announce, today is the first, right? Let me announce what the collection was. This for the month which went by, June. The gross GST revenue collection for the month of June 2022 is 1,44,616 crores. (56% rise of the GST revenues in the same month last year. 56%. So the trend that was being talked about, we are now reversing that and showing that the GST revenues remain above 1.40 lakh crores. So 1.40 seems to be the rough bottom line. We are not going below that. We are only collecting more than that. So the existential crisis that Vivek Johri spoke about, you are playing a very critical role in this country's taxation system. Don't you doubt yourselves. I was also happy to hear one thing. There was a little comparison between, systems being provided by the CBDT, which are very good, Saral, CBIC saying that to CBDT, and I could see the front row of CBDT members feeling, look. That's the kind of competition between the two boards that we love to watch and encourage. There's so much to benefit. There's so much to benefit from one another's experiences. There's no competition otherwise. And that is the kind of feeling which I also saw during the week-long Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav celebrations that Finance Ministry held. And in that, I could see each day, each department of the Finance Ministry trying to list out the wonderful work that they've done in the last few years, and of course, trace the history in the last 75 years. And that's the kind of, feeling, the sense of belonging, the sense of respecting seniors, the sense of having seniors amidst one's gathering when you're remarkably recalling great strides that you've made during the 75 years, that brings in a sense of camaraderie, learning from one another, and above all then, benefit of collective energy. So today I could see that also. I was happy also for Vivek to respond to some of the suggestions which came from the tax assessees themselves who came here to present. Many of the suggestions are being responded to, and that's how nimble CBIC should be, CBDT should be, so the taxpayer gets the confidence that our inputs are being valued, thought through, and responded to. Not very many times will you do it in their favor, but at least if you're able to do it when you can do it, it gives them the confidence, all right, from among the 10 suggestions I gave, at least 4 or 5 being responded to positively, and maybe that number will increase in the future as well. So that was very good, and that is the way it should go forward, I would think. Today is also the day when the Chartered Accountants Day is celebrated. They also have a big role to play with the two boards. In fact, I remember in 2019, they worked very much in synchrony with the two boards, took a lot of suggestions. Also, it gave inputs to Infosys for improving the platform, and I wish them well as well in this context. So if you just look at the critical benefits that have arisen because of the GST, as was said by one of the 5 participants in doing a presentation, the tax arbitrage which existed pre-GST days between one state and another because of the varied rates which prevailed, legacy taxation schemes which were there in place, have been completely removed, which means citizens of India pay the same tax for the same service or same commodity. It is so much right in terms of equity for taxation principles. And therefore, no citizen should be paying more for anything which his brother or sister living in a different state is paying for in a different rate. So that equity principle of taxation has now well been established, and people see the difference in it. Also, compliance reduction. If because of the technology-driven system, we have brought in a taxation system, particularly an indirect one at that, if there is ease of compliance, it makes the life of everybody easy. And that's what we heard from the 5 presentations. No cascading effect of taxation, no double taxation, no overlaps in taxation, leading to confusion. And that's why when you talk about greater credibility and taxation and transparency in taxation, GST has actually brought it in. We should remember that those are principles which are very necessary for a humane taxation scheme of things in any one country. I'm saying this, although I still receive a little bit of voices here to the converse. I'm saying this, what I'm going to say now, although I occasionally do hear, no, it's not as you think, there are still some discretion, but GST has removed discretion to a large extent. There is no, therefore, rent seeking. But even with the boards being in front of me, I'm aware the media is before me, but I would still say we should even better perform in terms of removing even one little iota of discretion if it prevails anywhere. We should just make sure the system is so transparent that whisper of allegation about discretion somewhere in the ground should be completely removed. So it's time for me actually to say to each one of you all, not just those 35 certification receiving tax officials, each one member of the board, each one in the field formation, each one belonging to Department of Revenue deserves a very big applause. You have actually lived through a difficult pandemic period, also lived simultaneously at the same time through a period where a big reform in the Indian economy was happening. You were actually leading it as though you were the engine of this reform. And you have today successfully moved from the pandemic period, and you're now showing recovery. That is why, because of the buoyancy in tax collection. I was somewhere reading Tarun Bajaj's interview this morning where he said, my tax collection has grown up 30%, whereas the GDP has only grown, nominal terms, has only grown 19.5%. A buoyancy of 1.5, he said. Am I right, Tarun? Not possible unless you people in the ground are working. So on this day, I'm extremely happy that the CBIC thought it fit to get the tax assessees themselves to come and speak here. So I take them by their names. I'm not taking the rest of the team's names because that will be too many. So Ms. Mutwani from Mumbai, Shri Garimalla Srinivas on MSME, Ms. Sonam Kasera on exports, Shri D.D. Goel on procedures, Shri Pramod Jain on taxation. For you and for all members of your team, thank you very much for coming here. And sharing your experience here actually, and through here actually, builds credibility into the system that we want to bring in. There can be naysayers even today. I'm astonished when I see naysayers who on the one hand have their party representatives as finance ministers sitting in the GST Council, happily saying, yes, it's removing a lot of anomalies, making it simple, good generation of revenue in the GST Council. Whereas the naysayers outside call it all kinds of names. It is actually striving to be, and all of you all are striving to make it good and simple tax. But it's a shame when people outside would talk about it as something else. I don't even want to repeat it. They are all party in the GST Council. They actively participate in the GST Council. Decisions are taken together. Discussions are part of any good decision-making process. But that doesn't deny the fact that this tax has lived to meet the expectation of the people of India, and which is what you heard today through the 5 teams presenting. And they come from all over the country. They come from all over the country. They represent various segments, MSMEs, exporters, taxation specialist, somebody who does business in logistics and also has interstate movement of goods. If they are not judges of the scheme, who else can be? And you heard what they judged the scheme for what it is. So I think each one of you here should go back greatly motivated by today's meeting, draw inspiration from those very taxpayers who are telling you that you've given us a very good taxation system, but don't get complacent, improve your technology, keep it nimble, keep changing it as per the requirement of time, and we shall make it far more efficient to serve the people of India. So thank you for being here. Jai Hind.
Thank you, ma'am, for your inspiring words. Ma'am, your words have always guided us, and today, with your words, you have again motivated us in working selflessly and tirelessly towards nation building.